Neuroscientists have been studying the effects of mindfulness techniques on our brains with some pretty compelling results. The introduction of magnetic resonance imaging, MRI, into clinical practice in the 1980s has resulted in substantial scientific advancement. Sara, a neuroscientist at Harvard Medical School, uses the MRI technology to look at very fine, detailed brain structures and see what's happening to the brain while a person is performing a certain task, including yoga and meditation. According to her own words, Lazar herself used to be skeptical about the lofty claims her yoga teacher made about the emotional benefits of meditation she should have expected to experience. When, after attending several classes, she indeed felt calmer, happier, and more compassionate, she decided to refocus her research on the changes in the brain's physical structure as a result of meditation practice. Can meditation genuinely change brain structure? In her first study, Lazar looked at individuals with extensive meditation experience, which involved focused attention on internal experiences. The data proved, among others, that meditation may slow down or prevent age-related thinning of the frontal cortex that otherwise contributes to the formation of memories. The common knowledge says that when people get older, they tend to forget stuff. Interestingly, Lazar and her team found out that 40 to 50-year-old meditators had the same amount of grey matter in their cortex as the 20 to 30-year-old ones. For her second study, she engaged people who had never meditated before and put them through a mindfulness-based stress reduction training program, where they took a weekly class and were told to perform mindfulness exercises, including body scan, mindful yoga, and sitting meditation, every day for 30 to 40 minutes. Lazar wanted to test the participants for positive effects of mindfulness meditation on their psychological well-being and alleviating symptoms of various disorders such as anxiety, depression, eating disorder, insomnia, or chronic pain. After 8 weeks, she found out that the brain volume increased in 4 regions, from which the most relevant were hippocampus, a seahorse-shaped structure responsible for learning, storage of memories, spatial orientation, and regulation of emotions. Temporoparietal junction, the area where temporal and parietal lobes meet and which is responsible for empathy and compassion. On the other hand, the one area whose brain volume decreased was the amygdala, an almond-shaped structure responsible for triggering the flight or fight response as a reaction to a threat, whether real or only perceived. Here, the decrease in grey matter correlated with changes in the levels of stress. The smaller their amygdala became, the less stressed people felt, even though their external environment remained the same. It proved that the change in amygdala reflected the change in the people's reactions to their environment, not in the environment itself. What is the main driver of change in our brain? Our brain develops and adapts throughout our whole lives. This phenomenon, called neuroplasticity, means that grey matter can thicken or shrink, connections between neurons can be improved, new ones can be created, and old ones degraded or even terminated. For a long time, it was believed that once your child brain was fully developed, the only thing you could anticipate for the future was a gradual decline. Now we know that our everyday behavior literally changes our brain. And it seems that the same mechanisms which allow our brains to learn new languages or sports can help us learn how to be happy. Neuroscientist Lara Boyd from the University of British Columbia points out that the human brain changes in 3 ways to support learning of new things. 1. Chemical. Transfer of chemical signals between neurons, which is linked to short-term learning improvements for memory or a motor skill. 2. Structural. Changes in connections between neurons which are linked to long-term learning improvements. These mean that the brain regions that are important for specific behaviors may change their structure or enlarge. These changes need more time to take place, which underlines the importance of a dedicated practice. And number 3, functional. Increased excitability of a brain region in relation to a certain behavior. In essence, the more you use a particular brain region, the easier it is to trigger its use again. Is happiness a gift or a developed skill? If we embrace the idea that our well-being is a skill that can be cultivated, then it's obvious that meditation is simply a form of exercise tailored for our brain. While there's not enough scientific data available to measure the benefits of a 5-minute versus a 30-minute mindfulness session, the way in which our brain changes over time suggests that we can actively foster lasting results with regular practice. Scientists from the Center for Healthy Minds at the University of Wisconsin-Madison defined well-being from the viewpoint of these 4 areas. Sustained positive emotion. In a study that examined response to positive images, individuals with higher activity in those brain regions linked to positive emotions reported a higher level of psychological well-being. Recovery from negative emotion. There is evidence that mindfulness training leads to greater resilience to painful stimuli. In this study, experienced meditators reported the same pain intensity as individuals with little mindfulness experience, but less unpleasantness. Pro-social behavior and generosity. Behavior that increases social bonds and improves the quality of social relationships increases well-being. Research then suggests that compassion can be cultivated with mental training. Mindfulness and mind-wandering. Mindfulness, defined as paying attention to the present moment without judgment, makes people happier. A study where a smartphone app was used to monitor people's thoughts, feelings, and actions showed that their minds were wandering approximately half of the time, and while doing so, they reported significantly more unhappiness. We tend to blame our brain a great deal for inability to remember, for making us feel bad, for being slow, as if it was a capricious ruler whom the rest of our body needs to follow no matter what. We refuse to assume responsibility for our brain's health and our mind's happiness. If we did, we could experience this phenomenal organ becoming our loyal friend, rather than an eternal enemy. We understand that to be able to run a 10K race or do 50 push-ups, we should exercise regularly. Yet we get put off when our brain doesn't yield results instantly. Like, hey, I've meditated for 20 minutes and I still feel awful. What a new age hype. The human brain is extremely plastic and establishes new neural connections daily. These intricate networks, however, need to be reinforced and consolidated through our behavior. Just like a path through a forest needs to be walked, otherwise it will be grown over and eventually disappear. Meditation can relax you and regulate your emotions in the short term, but it can also change your brain permanently if you approach it as a form of mental exercise. Science shows that if we invest our effort into reprogramming our brains, it can truly guide us towards a better life. Do you meditate? If so, how does it make you feel?